words come to mind when we talk about Mike Campbell? Today we're going to look at some of his iconic interludes and reflect on how does he always play the perfect part? Hey, I'm Eric Haugen. Check the description box below for tabs and backing tracks on my website. Information about exactly what sound tools I'm using today. I borrowed this guitar from my buddy Owen. Live Q&As and more on Patreon, and my deep dive courses. It's all on my website. The Heartbreakers are a great band, and those are great songs. If you have a group of people all doing such good work, you don't have to do that much down here to contribute. Especially, let's talk about Benmont Tench. That's a big part of the reason that Mike sounds so good, is Benmont is often playing the hookiest, catchiest keyboard parts throughout the song, so Mike can just hang back and wait for his opportunity to go. The chord progression is just A minor, D minor, and G. And Benmont's doing that really great part. Stan Lynch is playing a really interesting drum beat. So Mike just kind of hops in there with the overdub doing, I guess, what is that? Pentatonic minor. There's the D. Yeah, and now he's thinking full natural minor. That's it. That's all he does there. Moving on. You can hear in his compositions that there's a spontaneity and a looseness to it, that he is comfortable playing the simple thing and he phrases the shit out of it. Let's put it this way. He commits to the lick. All right, let's look at breakdown. So, it's just A minor. This is track 2 of the first record, too. I mean, it's a very impressive thing. And you can kind of hear he must have just had this little swinging little part, and then he just did a thing that I talk about this all the time, that if you have an idea, what if I just take that little motif and move it to different parts of the minor pentatonic scale, So yeah, he's just, first I won't do any of the slides. He's like, cool, there it is. There's my little thing. That's all it is. I should point out, if you listen to the drum beat, and he's hitting that accent. There's a little bit of technique there, though, because we have to think about what fingers we're going to use to get that slide happening. And, honestly, I watched quite a few clips of him playing. I've seen him play it a bunch of different ways. So we're going to do my version of 18 different ways that he played it. There's that first part. So I'm using my ring finger and then over to that one. Now I switch fingers so I can get to that note easier, and then I switch again. I've seen him not do that, but that's how I do it. That's such a perfect little thing. And you could hear he didn't get overwrought about it. He was like, oh, that's not interesting enough. He was like, band sounds good. I'll just do this. And then a little kind of response. Get those ones and that one. Sometimes I hybrid pick it. It doesn't super duper matter. And then it goes around again. And slightly different the second time. I did do a rake there. Does he do a rake? I don't know. So a rake We have this hand wrapped around real well. See that? You go. It's all about this hand. Here. Great. That's all there is to it. Mike always talks about how important vibrato is to his sound. Because, yeah, it is important, especially if you're a slow guitar player, to get a nice vocal vibrato. Now, there's a lot of ways to do vibrato. None of them are wrong. Again, it's all just different. I'm going to talk about the way that I think is the most all-purpose. So let's look at the, first phrase of Refugee. Yeah, that second time around, we could put some vibrato there. So, all right, I'm gonna get real close to the camera so you can see. The important thing is the full contact that we have here, and I'm actually rotating my entire forearm. But because of that leverage, it pulls that string. And yes, I'm exaggerating it so you can really hear it, but in real life, it would be a smaller motion. It is not this or this. None of those things are wrong, but you can hear there's a difference in sound. And so if you have a habit of doing vibrato maybe a little too fast, a little too wild, know this, you can't just tell your brain once and it's going to just fix it for you. Every time you do vibrato, you got to be like, yeah, let me do the slow rotational vibrato. That's what I always call it, SRV vibrato. And I tend to try and wait, a couple of milliseconds before I start it. Now, one extra thing to talk about with this very simple little part is this lick. This gets into that thing of sometimes folks are like, man, when I do bends, I just get a lot of extra noise. So first things first, you can see how close this hand is sitting on the strings. And this index finger here is up on there so that once I snap out of that the fourth fret, that G string tone, that note gets silenced. Because that's like, that's a classic, Chuck Berry lick. And yeah, Mike's a big Chuck Berry fan, of course. Who isn't? That was the lick. If you were a guitar player in the 60s and you knew that, you had the gig. Like, they were like, oh, cool, he can do the Chuck Berry thing. Let's also check out Tom's guitar part on Refugee, because it's actually a really great rhythm guitar part. Like I said earlier, it's about what everybody does. What everybody does makes it sound good. All right, it's cool. You don't have to do that note there, but I don't hear that G sharp in there. I watched like 18 different clips. Again, they play it 18 different ways. This is what I do. I love that. There's one time on the E the first time, two the second time. And of course, I should point out, my foot is going down below. Let's take our time. Let's get that thing bouncing. That's all I wanted to point out. Stuff like that. It seems simple, but it's not. Rather than thinking of your guitar part as your guitar part and the other person's guitar part as their guitar part, make one big guitar. And that's what happens in the chorus of the Waiting, and like, very important idea. Very important idea. Let's look at Tom's part. Real cool on Dan Electro. Maybe I should get a Rickenbacker. It's so super drony. There is a little bit of a Bo Diddley rhythm going on there. Just wanted to point that out. I like to point out the Bo Diddley 3-3-2 whenever I hear it, but okay. I'm playing that note, but I'm not, I'm holding it, but I'm not even touching it. Just in case I swung wild, I put it there. That actually is tricky. Where those syncopations are vary a little bit to go with the lyric. Yeah, that's a thing with Tom. Like, you think it's simple, but then when you really try and play it accurately, you're like, oh man, they are really nudging those notes around to go with the lyric. And this one's square. Now let's look at what Mike does there. Open position, that's what Mike thought to do, and it's the perfect part. Because it's just G, D, A, D. Just the skinny little strings though. Goes around again. And around. And then, yeah, his little octave thing. That move right there. I don't know why. That is, just so you know, that's hard for me. In conclusion, if you're a guitar player in a band, listen first. Really listen to the song, the melody, what everybody else is doing, and then see if your part can add to that. Rather than thinking about like, well, there's a song and I'm over here, kind of like me-based playing, we-based playing, I think is what Mike is so good at. On top of like, he absolutely just has a total knack and a gift for this stuff. He just does. I mean, it makes sense. He's also a songwriter, so he's always coming at it from that song-based kind of thinking. He's just so cool. Thanks so much to everybody who supports me and all the ways that you do with the like, subscribe, and share. All that stuff helps and it costs you nothing. One more time, how my business works. Patreon has live Q&As, charts, backing tracks, and all sorts of other stuff over there, and my deep dive courses. You can check it all out on my website. As Bill and Ted would say, be excellent to each other. That includes yourself. Happy Friday. Eat pizza.